Hey there, it's Patricia. I often have people talk to me about the traits of being a highly sensitive person and questioning about where does wounding come into play, what is healing. And what I've found is that if people hate the traits of being highly sensitive, they hate their sensitivity, they hate having strong feelings, they really wish that they weren't a highly sensitive person. And I hear this, it's very common. When I hear that, what I question is there wounding that's happened? Because what happens is when we're kids, we just have deep feelings. And the research shows that kids that are raised in environments that are responsive, highly sensitive people, have very good outcomes. It's those HSPs that had what Dr. Elaine Aron calls difficult childhoods. To me, that can be a parent that just doesn't understand the traits of being highly sensitive. So that means that a child is worried about something or is having deep feelings and the parent doesn't understand, and they go like, don't worry about it, let it go. Or, don't cry over that. You have nothing to cry about. The message that the child gets is how they're experiencing the world isn't okay. And oftentimes we still continue to have these strong feelings and thoughts, but we're told that it's not okay, so we kind of bury it and it goes underground. So the research shows that those children that had difficult childhoods that are highly sensitive have higher rates of anxiety and depression. The way that I've kind of formulated it, this is anecdotal, I don't have any research to back it up, but what happens is we have wounding then, and we end up often hating the traits of being sensitive because our caregivers didn't embrace it, we didn't learn to embrace it. How we show up in the world feels like it's wrong, so we've got this wounding. So what I find in working with my clients is we need to work on the wounding. We look at what healing is, and then we can overlay the traits of being a highly sensitive person. Once that wounding is taken care of, my experience is that people love the traits of being highly sensitive. We have so many great traits. We're loyal, we're conscientious, we are deep thinkers, we're great at problem solving, we're great listeners, we're the healers, the creatives, the teachers, the educators, the therapists, the poets. So it's really about figuring out, are we coming from a place of wounding or are we coming from a place of healing? And when we work on the wounding, we really get to appreciate and enjoy the traits of being highly sensitive. So let's just talk a little bit about what some of those traits are if we come from a place of wounding. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, I suck at coming up with examples. So I'm just owning that this is kind of one of my shortcomings. So if we're coming from a place of wounding, we're going to be blaming. We don't take responsibility. It's your fault. That person didn't show up on time. This arrived late. He didn't do what he was supposed to. She didn't come when she was supposed to. Everything is external. There's no sense of anything that we did that had a part in it. Now, things in the world happen that are out of our control, and so it's not that we're responsible for all the bad things that happen. But there's a way that we can take responsibility, and I'll tell you what that looks like. But if we're blaming, we're going to looking to assign responsibility outside of ourselves for why things aren't going well. The economy is bad. I can't get a job. They're not hiring people like me, as opposed to figuring out what our part in it is. The second one is reacting and being very emotional. Now, highly sensitive people, we're going to have very strong emotional responses to things. We're deep feelers. We're going to feel the good things strongly. We're going to feel the negative things very strongly. But there's a difference between having the feeling come up and experiencing it and communicating from that place. So if I'm coming from a place of wounding, I'm going to be like, you did this to me. That's bad. This isn't fair. I'm going to be in my emotions, kind of almost dumping my emotions onto somebody else. And if we haven't learned the tools on how to navigate these deep emotions, it's often like hot potato. We don't want to sit with it, so we just want to give it to somebody else. And if you've ever been around somebody who's done that kind of emotional hot potato, you feel like you're picking up all their stuff and it doesn't feel very good. So we want to learn how to have those feelings come up, manage them, contain the feelings, and communicate without that heavy emotional reactivity. The third one is when we feel like we're a victim or we feel disempowered. We feel like things are being done to us, things aren't fair, we feel like we have no control. And as highly sensitive people, we have a very strong sense of justice, fairness, and equality. So these are going to get triggered for us all the time. There are things in the world that are unfairly, but there's a difference between being a victim and figuring out how we can get control over our part of the situation. But when we are coming from that place of victim, it feels like everything's being done to us and we have no choice and no control. It's a really lousy place to be in. The next one is having black and white thinking. So everything is either good or it's bad, it's right or it's wrong. There's no room in the middle for process. And so what it means is somebody is always going to be right and somebody's going to be wrong, or things are good or bad. That really creates a lot of perfectionism. It makes it hard to get things done. If we judge others, we have to judge ourselves by those high standards. The truth is, most things in life are really in that gray area, and when we are uncomfortable being with our feelings and being in process, we often will default to rules, right, wrong, good, bad, because it feels safer, but there's really not a lot of depth and richness in that, in those extremes. The last one is generalizing, where we come from you always, you never, we kind of pull everything out from the history. We really can't stay in the moment, so we get triggered, we get reactive, and then we go into kind of this historical thing. Sometimes it's called the kitchen sink, and another thing. So these are all places from wounding. If we're coming from a place of healing, we're going to take responsibility. So an example that I gave recently is this past weekend I had a number of things happen that were really, it felt like they were out of my control. They weren't huge things, but there were enough things that were moderate that I didn't have control over, and it started to pull up that history. So this is my thinking and my feeling. You know, I'm the one that always has to do stuff. I can't count on people. People aren't here for me. I'm the one that's dependable and responsible. Those are my thoughts and feelings and reactions. There's nothing wrong with that. We're going to have those. But what I didn't do was to come at the people that I felt like were not doing what I needed them to do. I didn't do that. So with one of the people, I was dependent on this person to get some stuff done for me, and I said, I feel really powerless. I'm depending on you. I can't do this stuff myself. I need this stuff to be done by a certain time. What can we do to get it taken care of? I could have gone into like, you didn't do this, and you're always late, and you never do this, and I can't count on you. That's not going to be great for the relationship. It's not great for me. So it's not uncommon for us to have that kind of what I call spirally thinking come up, but there are different ways that we can handle it. The next one is taking responsibility for what our part in it is. So in another one of these situations that came up over the weekend, I had made an agreement with someone that we were going to meet the day before we had an event to do some planning. And as the event got closer, I realized that made me feel really uncomfortable because I wanted to be really prepared for this event. Kind of a highly sensitive person trait. You know, we want to think things through, we want to be planned, we want to plan, we want to be prepared. So what I communicated was, you know, I thought about it, and if I could go back, I need more time to prepare. Instead of meeting the day before, can we meet a little bit earlier than this? We can always put out what we want. It doesn't mean that we're going to get what we ask for, but the process of being able to name it often just takes the energy out of it. And I think because highly sensitive people, we're thinking and planning ahead, we kind of assume that everybody else operates the same way that we do, and they don't. So it's our responsibility to name what it is that we want. Excuse me, we may or may not get what we want, but we may learn how to negotiate some middle ground, which kind of goes to the next one, which is competing needs. So I may have a need and you may have a need. We both may not be able to get our need met. Maybe I want to stay in and you want to go out. But what we can do is there's room to hold both of those together. It's the both and. So if we're in wounding, one of us is right, one of us is wrong, one of us gets our need met, the other one doesn't. When we come from a place of healing, we try and figure out, is there a way that we can both get our needs met? You know, would you be willing to go out for a shorter amount of time? So I'm going to stretch a little bit and go out, and you know, you're going to get out, but maybe not for as long as you want. Or can we pick a venue that's going to work more for me than going to some place that's maybe loud or noisy? So there's a way that we can hold both of those together, so we're not in the black and white, we're in the gray, and we're negotiating. And relationships are about give and take. It's not always 50-50. Sometimes it's 90-10, sometimes it's 10-9. To be in that gray area, and there's fluidity in the reciprocity in the relationship, it works. So the next one is seeing my part in it. So in this situation that I talked about with the friend, I owned what my part was. That I said, you know, if I could have done this differently, this is what I would have done. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm feeling uneasy. This is what I need. So we always have a part in how we show up, how we react. If we don't do something, that in itself is responsibility. So there are ways that we can take responsibility as we engage in these relationships. We have choices. Do we want to engage in this relationship anymore? Are we getting our needs met? We always have some choice. And then the last part is being specific. So in wounding, we go into the you always, I never, it's always, that we stay focused on what the specific issue is at hand. We don't bring in everything else from the past. We talk about this one specific issue, what we would have liked, what we're needing, how we're feeling. That's how we work on healing. And when we do this work, it's ongoing. I wish I could tell you it's a one and done, like, boom, you're fixed. It's an ongoing process, but what happens is when we start, it can be very difficult and very uncomfortable because we're kind of owning our feelings and sitting with discomfort. What happens as time goes on is it's more like having an itch or the volume on a radio, that when we're beginning the work on our healing, the volume is really loud with our reactions and it feels like it's just at us all the time. Over time, that volume gets turned down, so we may get triggered, we may have a response, but we go like, oh, okay, this is what I need to do, or this is how I navigate it. So that's kind of when we get to that place, then we start to really enjoy the benefits and the gifts of being highly sensitive. And there are so many benefits and gifts. The things that we think are wrong with us really are our superpowers, and I love working with people to help them kind of untangle this mess so that we really can get down to the richness of being highly sensitive. I hope you found this helpful. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.